Welcome back this afternoon to ITB Berlin Now, your digital space of this year's ITB here live from Berlin at the studios. We'll miss you, you're dearly missed, but nevertheless we feel you. Thanks so much for your engagement in the cafes and in the networking session. All the videos from all the speakers and the interesting panels will be available until the end of May. Thanks also for tagging along ITB Berlin. Thank you so much, because it's also, it's wonderful to see your selfies from the sofa or the home office nevertheless. Please keep continuing. We are watching it and we are reading every single post. So thank you so much. And of course, a big thank you also to 3,300 exhibitors who are also waiting only for you to get explored. Now we are heading back to the e-travel world, and with me in the studio is the travel analyst and the managing director at Travel Commerce, Dirk Rogel, and he's gonna take over the stage now for you.
Thank you so much, Katie, and hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. It's a pleasure to be here on e-travel world, even if it's virtual, and I'm looking forward to welcome Patrick Andrae. He's the CEO of HomeToGo. Hello, Patrick. Pleasure to see you. Welcome here on ITB.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let me just say some words about you. There might be some people in the audience who are not so familiar with you. We try to work against this. So you founded HomeToGo in year 2014. You have a PhD in law. You have been very successful in selling furniture as business director of business development at Home24 in Germany. And yeah, you're one of the great winners in the travel industry. Last year, we'll talk about this. HomeToGo is, as you would say, the world's largest vacation rental search engine. Some others may say you're a meta search portal. I think you don't like this description that much. We can talk about this more briefly. As I say, you're a marketplace. Maybe you can get an OTA. We will dive into this later on. But first of all, I think you had a quite special year, 2020. You had a decent, good performance in the market of home rentals, vacation rentals. And yeah, what happened last year, Patrick? When did you realize that you may become one of the, let's say, winner in a pandemic year?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, last year was a special year for everyone in travel. I would definitely underline that. And also for us, when we saw like the crisis starting basically in China, we already took pre-measures internally in February to think around what if it comes or spreads over the world, what does it mean for us as a company? And so obviously we also saw then as it came over, the good thing was we were well prepared and could also show this to our investors and especially to our staff, although we had also to do some hard decisions there. But nonetheless, it was very, very good that we were prepared and could make clear decisions and give clear guidance to investors, but also to our employees. And we had a clear plan what we needed to do and where we need to do the right investments throughout the year. But obviously, April, for instance, 2020 was almost minus 90% year over year in terms of, not only in terms of traffic, but also in terms of revenues. And this was obviously for the first time in the history of HomeToGo, also a shocking moment, like for every travel company. But what we said also as part of the clear guidance for this moment was always we were probably the last that got hit and are probably the first that will get out of it, because vacation rentals are by far for sure like the safest option, and to travel safe or to travel with distance to other people. And so this is what we also saw then, in the summer, when basically lockdowns were, or also like regulations were a little bit loosened, and we saw a dramatic increase and the best month ever for the company in terms of traffic, but also revenues due to this surge of people that wanting to have this kind of domestic and safe travel in vacation rentals.
Mm-hmm. So you have been in crisis modus for a while, and you left it pretty much earlier compared to others in the industry. When did you realize that there might come a kind of boom in your segment, in your vertical?
Yeah, I would say it's easy to say afterwards, right? But we made this promise or this projection within the company and to investors prior that we think if someone comes early out of it, it's vacation rentals, and it's very likely that vacation rentals also become a very, very interesting, and even could be not necessarily needs to be a bad year in terms of losing revenues or losing bookings versus 2019, because they are so strong summer months that actually cope with the loss that we had prior, because due to the rebound, there comes a lot in. But the first thing where we really saw it was already in May, when, for instance, like in Germany, it was basically said that in the beginning of June you're allowed to travel again. And then it was the second 2 weeks of May were already like a run on vacation rentals. Now that's definitely what we saw. And there it was very clear that this is not necessarily a bad year for us, despite the fact we don't want to call ourselves winners, because it's always like in a crisis, it's so like this with so many things happening. We don't want to basically be named as a winner out of it. But obviously it nonetheless, I would say we would have had a better year if it wouldn't have been there. That's clear.
But you agree, Patrick, that you are at least a relative winner in this year, in the past year?
Yeah, definitely. So I
don't know. Can you share some figures with us? What happened last year? Are you still growing, or is it?
Yeah, we grew last year on the top level. So in terms of bookings that we generated, we actually grew slightly. Year over year.
My congrats.
As I said, with some. Sorry.
My congrats.
Yeah, but with some, as I said, so like extremes. So we had some months where we were 90% minus almost, and we had some months like in the summer where we had 80 or more than 100% growth in certain metrics. Which was crazy. So like this kind of extremes.
Absolutely. And I think in global years, your main business is really to collect the global inventory of vacation rentals. Now the business probably completely switch on to domestic travel, or mainly to domestic travel. What did it make for you? I mean, usually your USP is the international traffic, I would guess at least. Now people book domestic holidays on your site.
Yes, actually, so we started HomeToGo as a classical, for the classical vacation rental space. And the classical vacation rental space, when we first started it, like the space is mainly around people, or a big part of the travel that we see on the classic vacation rentals. So like the lonely house on the Baltic Sea, or in northern lakes in Italy, and these kind of things, is something that is on one hand domestic. So we have in all countries already prior, where we are active, already prior the crisis, we had a domestic share that was always around or even above 50%. So it's a domestic product. Plus you have these kind of, I would say, near travel or nearby travel things anyway in it. So for instance, we see that people from the southern of Germany rather go also to Italy, or even to Croatia, and people from the northern of Germany rather go to Denmark. So basically everything you can reach within one day of car driving, that we already knew before. But obviously during the crisis, like the domestic share in some of our destinations or countries we are active in went up to 85-90%. So this was clearly the fact. So even though we came already from a very high level of domestic share.
So let's try to do a little bit forecasting this year. We know it's hard and we can't predict everything, but we see some optimism in the industry. We see some kind of reopening options, at least, for instance, on the Canary Islands, hopefully more on the Mediterranean Sea, wherever. So it can travel, international travel can come back this year. What are your estimations? When do we see a push in international travel?
We always see it when you see like actually that regulations are being not so tight anymore. Yeah, so we see that even in some waves. Yeah, so if European countries, like for instance France, when they loosen the lockdown, suddenly week over week we see a spike in traffic and also in bookings, because people are simply eager to use these moments in time when they can travel now. Yeah, so obviously Germany or like domestic German travel has been now forbidden, or touristic travel has been now forbidden for quite a long time. So there we see mainly bookings for the summer season, where people think that they can travel again. What you also hear from the big travel companies like TUI and so on. But normally what we really see is that some people also speak of revenge travel, that people simply like want to spend time on vacations or somewhere else and not just walk around their house. And so what we see also when the UK, for instance, announced when they will reopen due to the high amount of vaccinations, we saw an immediate uplift from one day to the other that was almost 100% in searches and even more in bookings and so on. Yeah, so you see that this demand is simply pent up. Yeah, and people like really want to travel because they have now been spending enough probably on furniture and maybe stocks. Yeah. And I think like travel is the thing that will come. Obviously, domestic travel will come, what we believe will come first again, because it's the normal pattern, and international travel will take some time to come back to the same, I would say, especially, I would say like maybe European travel is a different thing, but really international travel, like long-term travel or long-haul flights that will take a little bit longer. Yeah.
Okay. The session has a title, Patrick. It's called "Why Vacation Rentals Will Still Be Booming in 2021." So, why will they? Or what is the reason for it? If people have the opportunity to maybe take other forms of travel, like cruise or long-distance package trips, whatever, why should they take a vacation home again?
Yeah, I think there are various reasons, right? Like, so you have for vacation rentals, on one thing, we saw a lot of people that booked it last year. Yeah, maybe, we know that a lot of people also booked it for the first time because it was the only safe option that they saw, despite hotels. And what we internally speak of, we speak of this factor of mainstreaming of alternative accommodation and / vacation rentals, which for us means that a lot of people get educated basically on this form of staying somewhere. And also when I speak, that's anecdotally obviously, but when I speak to people privately, and also like especially people that might have been convinced of hotels prior, I often hear these kind of things like, okay, if I now go somewhere, I want to forget about the crisis, so I take a vacation rental, because there if I leave my basically my room, I don't have to wear a mask or anything like this. So I really want something somewhere else where I can still feel home, and safe, and maybe a little bit out of this whole thing around the crisis and can forget about it. And so you have a lot of people that get educated around vacation rentals that might not have thought prior that they are vacation rental type, because they have said, oh, I need the service in a hotel or whatsoever. And now I have these anecdotes that are really nice. So yeah, I tried for the first time, and actually it was much better than I thought. And I think this is exactly one of the factors. Secondly, there is vacation rentals was prior already like the fastest growing vertical in travel and also within accommodation. So and this has basically accelerated due to this, and will continue and will have tailwinds. And then there's a third factor that is very interesting for the classical vacation rentals. So you have this whole thing, what we call here at HomeToGo, we basically call it work from home away, or work remote from home away, or workation. So we will see, and we see it also today already, right? Like we saw it in the beginning of the crisis, that people started like booking things in the countryside or in nicer areas, because if they anyway have to work from home, why, in shitty weather, sorry for the wording, take a round around your block in your city when you can go in the countryside or into sunny weather in the same time zone. Yeah, and this is what we saw very early in our data. Yeah, when the crisis hit, but we constantly see it that people start like in what we normally would call like shoulder seasons, so not the main seasons or high seasons, that people book for longer, what we internally call midterm rentals. Airbnb, I think, calls it long-term rentals. So people like book longer than a month to stay somewhere. And this will be something that will stay, because simply like remote work policies will be not tightened again, or not to the extent they were before. And you will see two factors from this. One is that people may choose to go in these shoulder seasons, what I said, right? Like for 1 or 2 months when there's basically gray skies and rain in Germany, for instance, that you might go to Portugal and spend there 1 or 2 months, because you can still walk with 20 degrees on the beach. Maybe you don't go into the sea, but it's still nicer than at home. And secondly, what we think what will happen is that people start enlarging their high season stays. So instead of going maybe 2 weeks to a finca on Mallorca, you go 6 weeks, because you do 4 weeks of working remote, and then you do 2 weeks of holidays. But your family, especially the kids, can maybe spend 6 weeks in the sun and on the beach. And so I think this is a trend that will further accelerate the classical vacation rental inventory and also generally alternative accommodations. So, and it will be yet to see how much or how big this part of this market gets. But at least our data shows that it is something that people already do today. And as soon as people are allowed to travel more, and it's clear what the remote work policies will look like, this will be a huge trend in this vertical, because you wouldn't go 6 weeks into a hotel room. Yeah, so because this is simply then you want something there that is more like a home. Yeah.
Very good reasons, very good arguments, Patrick. I have no further questions about this, why vacation rentals will remain essential. But you also started listing hotels on HomeToGo. Why is this? Do we need another hotel meter searcher, OTA, whatever?
No, like to be honest, like hotels we have for a long time. Airbnb had actually also hotels for a long time, boutique hotels, and made it official with the Hotel Tonight acquisition. I think this came more or less like we have this internal saying at HomeToGo: we never leave a search unanswered. And so, like, we're trying, if for instance people are not finding something on our website for any reason, and normally this is exhaustive, so they would anyway maybe go to see if there's another option. So we say, okay, we pull them in as a fallback solution, basically. So if you are not finding what you want, then anyway, if there's no vacation rental available, you would need to go for a hotel.
So it's an additional service. Are there other additional services required?
Sorry?
Are there other additional services or in your portfolio required?
No. Like, so for sure,
you remain on accommodation.
We look for what could be things that we can solve with partnerships more. I think this is for us interesting for sure, because if someone books on our site, we are the anchor for things that might be interesting after the booking. Like experiences and other things, but we are not looking to go ourselves into experiences for these kind of verticals. And also hotel is for us not really a general vertical, more a fallback solution.
I see. When we look a little bit closer to your business model, you are somehow special. I just learned most of your transactions are paid on a CPA model per action and not per click, as it is usually the case in the meta search business. So why this? Why do you take the risk and go on an action-based transaction model?
It's very easy to explain. Actually, we also have CPC, so we are very, I would say, flexible on that, right? So, but you're right. The largest part of our revenues come from the CPA revenues that we do, and this is generally a thing where we simply believe in that CPA is the easier model to create a win-win situation between you and your partners. Yeah, because for us, we understand what converts, and so we can help better ranking and understanding conversion. Whereas the partner doesn't have the risk to invest into something where they might want to get the most out of it, but cannot steer as we can steer with our machine learning algorithms on a CPA level. So that's why, because when we started HomeToGo, we had also a higher share of CPC, but we quickly realized with our technology getting better that CPA is actually the better deal to deal in this vertical, and especially finding better solutions together with the partners. Because on a CPC, for sure, like theoretically, you have to be very careful as a platform also that you optimize for the right things. Yeah, because you only know, okay, someone clicks and then I earn something. This can basically set wrong incentives also for product A/B testing. Yeah, because you don't know if it converts in the end. And then maybe a partner at some point comes to you and says, yeah, I lower the CPCs because it doesn't convert. And then it can mess up with all your product evolutions that you did and so on. So also there, it's much better to work that way, because in the end, what we want and what our partner wants is conversions. Yeah, and this we can much better understand with CPA, and then also much better optimize for the partners the traffic that we send them and the bookings that we send them.
Sure. I just said it in my introduction. It's not so easy to put you in a basket, in a frame. You can be called, of course, search engine. You do so. I told you, I named you as a meta searcher. Some might say you're also an OTA when you're working on an action-based level. So who are you? What are you doing? Where do you see yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question. No, but like we see ourselves more as a meta search a platform that has a marketplace model. Yeah, and in this marketplace we try to do the best for our partners. Yeah, that means it's not only tied to the CPA that makes us different from a classical meta search. So we don't see ourselves as a meta search engine. Yeah, we see us more as a hybrid, as I said. So this kind of meta hybrid marketplace, and we have for our partners the option, because the vacation rental space, to understand it, is super fragmented. Yeah, so obviously you have the big OTAs that are active in it, but you have a ton of local OTAs, local classifieds businesses. You have even local agencies, local property managers, and all these kind of partners. We partner with more than 2,000 different partners, and therefore it's super important for us to have the right model for every one of them. This is also the reason why we have CPA and CPC ready as a model. And secondly, also help them converting. Yeah, it's the same point that I said prior, because for us, due to the CPA model, it doesn't help us and the partner if we send a smaller partner that might not have the tech resources or the brand, if we send them traffic and they cannot convert it. Yeah, because we don't earn and they don't earn. That's exactly the win-win situation. And so these partners like backed us to a certain extent, that we also provide them with help and the on-site booking solution, where basically they can directly convert on our side, especially if they miss the trust sometimes of customers and so on. But they still can show their brand, but in a closed kind of environment. And by this, we can help them staying competitive in our marketplace. Yeah, and this is basically the thing that makes us also very different, probably from a classical meta search, although we have this aggregation part, yeah, of bringing inventory together on one platform.
Mm-hmm. We talked a lot about fragmentation in the travel industry this morning in our ITB data talks. We found out that it's pretty hard to connect everyone. So you did this in the vacation rental job. What is your secret? Can you share a little bit of us? We know there are so many APIs, there are so many business rules, there are so many schemes. How to connect the world? What have you done there?
Yeah, it's a combination, right? Like, so the problem is exactly what you said. There's no kind of one standard out there. Yeah. So, and what we do is we adapt either to standards of our partners, yeah, where it makes sense, or we try to connect to any, I would say, standards that are out there. So especially like there are channel managers for property managers or things like this. And we also allow people to connect to us on our kind of standard feed. Yeah, so we have our own standard, and this is what they can use, a very easy to program on standard feed and standard API, so they can connect on this. And we basically try to find for everyone the right solution. And in the end, it's like it is always, right? It's about prioritization in these kind of pipelines to find the right solution for the right partners.
But it's not only about standards. It's not only about APIs. It's also about schemes, about descriptions, and I think they're pretty diverse in our global industry. How to get them in one frame?
Yeah, definitely. That's one of our kind of main problems, right? So if you are not an OTA, where people list directly, and you can say these are like the prerequisites that you need to fill in, and everything is ordered in the same way. You have to try to map all these things to one standard of your own, and you are also limited to a certain extent with some features, because you need to see if you cut out too much inventory, if you maybe introduce certain features on your website. Yeah. So this is obviously a thing that you have if you aggregate, because you need to see what kind of inventory you have. But we also work there closely with our partners and tell them sometimes, for instance, okay, we have a new feature. Can you, and this is something that works pretty well for us, for instance, we would suggest to you that you add this kind of information to your rentals, because if it works for us, it probably works also for you on your own site, but also if you list somewhere else or generally, but definitely it will help on our side. Yeah. So this is extremely important anyway to us, that we not only work for ourselves, but work really like in partnerships with our partners, so the suppliers of the inventory.
The world is large, and you named there are thousands of important players and partners for you. You did not name so far Google, which is also an important player in our industry, and somehow they also do some kind of meta search. Last summer you said Google is misusing his monopoly, and you sent out a complaint to the European antitrust complaint to the European Commission. So what's the status there, and why is Google misusing his monopoly?
I think in the first place, there's no new update to that, because things simply need their time on that. So I cannot give you any news on that. But the second thing is very easy, right? For us, it's about fair competition. And we think that Google misuses their dominance in the horizontal search to go into the vertical. And I can explain that very easily why it is that way. So because if you look at what Google does, so Google has normally, so they have the paid ads, and then they have the organic results. Yeah. And in the organic results, Google has an own algorithm that judges if something is good for the user or not. Yeah. So this is exactly how you get up in SEO, so search engine optimization, and how you get up in the organic results is because Google thinks you do something good. And the user, they always say they look at user experience and user signals. So if your site is good and they think the users find what they are searching for, they rank you up. And it takes obviously some time, because they carefully test. They're not like jumping you from position 1,000 to 1 on the next day. What Google does for their own products, and that's the interesting thing, they do two things. First thing, they implement it just on position 0 or 1, whatever you say, without needing to go through this process of proving itself, in their own algorithm. Although they have this algorithm that is actually built for user experience, and they just say, it's a Google product, that's why it's best user experience. But I never heard a user that said, okay, I really need exactly a Google product there. Because the search sucks so far, and this is really an interesting kind of thing. And the second thing to it is also not only Google puts their own product there without needing to go through this, you could say, like kind of user voting through the algorithm, but they also put it there in a completely different way, right? Like, so because the user sees not a text link, like for us or any of our partners, like Booking or Airbnb or HomeAway or whatever, but they see a giant, what we call to action, right? Because a shiny box with a map and with pictures and so on that no other company can have access to. Yeah. And so these two things is what we are complaining about. We are not complaining about that Google is used for building our own product, but it needs to be fairly decided what is the best product in there. And Google has an algorithm for this. So that means for us that Google needs to make sure that on one hand, that they are like also need to work their way up in the ranking. And secondly, either they are being shown themselves as a text link like everyone else, or everyone else has the chance to have this shiny box with their own search results and being linked directly to their platform like Google does. And that's the only thing. We're not saying you need to forbid Google to build a product, but if they did it, they shouldn't misuse their dominance in horizontal search to put something in, as they anyway have this kind of algorithm that should judge actually this. Yeah.
Yeah, Patrick, I promise I'm not a lawyer of Google and I don't have any motivation to do this, but let me take this perspective for one question. So do you agree that personalization in travel is essential? And do you agree that Google is doing a pretty good job there? And what you call algorithm, is it maybe simply a good kind of personalization of travel offers?
You mean like that they simply say from one day to the other like this, everyone, like 90% of the users that search for a vacation rental or for a hotel needs to use a Google product? Would you call that personalization?
No, we talk about this in my next question, but what I'm talking about is finding the really best personalized offer on my mobile device. And therefore you definitely need customer data, and I think Google is pretty good in customer data.
That's another thing, and that's another question actually to regulators, if they have too much data and should maybe be pushed to give this data to anyone else, yeah, that everyone else has the chance to actually build personalized products. But this is for me another question. For me, like, have you ever, maybe, I don't know if you have used the Google Hotel Finder or the Google Vacation Rental Finder thing.
Oh yes, checked it yesterday. So some things changed.
You might have seen it. You might have seen that the amount of results that they have is much less than, for instance, we have. Yeah, and so I wonder. So if actually the user, if you would give them our site, or it doesn't need to be our site, but can also be Booking.com site or Airbnb site, because Google probably didn't target us in the first place, but more the big OTAs with that product that are all not in there. I think like the thing is, I doubt that the user would directly say, I always wanted to have this product from Google. And personalization, I don't see any part of personalization at the moment happening there from my perspective, because it's still an early product. But the thing, that's exactly the point. If you are an early product, yeah, you cannot say just because it's from Google, it's best user experience, that's why we need to put it on zero. You have to work your way up. Otherwise, there's also no incentive to actually build a good product, yeah, because that's exactly the point. We could work our places up in the Google organic results because we built over years a good product, yeah, and we had to prove ourselves. Otherwise, the algorithm would have thought, okay, we don't put these guys further up in the results. And Google can just put it there. And obviously, if you put it in front of people, they will also start using it, even if they know or if they don't know that there might be better products. Yeah, and that's the unfair thing. And I think personalization, I don't see any personalization in there, but maybe I oversee it, and or I haven't given Google enough data for myself, because I'm mostly using Apple devices.
you got the point.
Securing you a bit more than Android devices, but I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Okay. Some things happened at Google this week, at least at Google Travel. We see free hotel ads listed on the Google Travel section. free of charge, as they say. So what's your comment on this? Is this a tough challenge for you and your business model, and how to compete with this?
The Google Vacation Rental Finder was for free anyway, yeah. So we know it already from that world. But it's again a thing, right? So Google doesn't need to have a business model on top for this product because they can subsidize it with their kind of marketing that they get from AdWords and other things, right? So maybe they don't need to do this. I cannot comment why they did it on the hotel side. Maybe to get more inventory, maybe to make the product more relevant, maybe to see that they proactively do something around against regulation. I don't know, yeah, and so I don't know. But for the vacation rental space, it has always been like this because they introduced the product first as a free product. Yeah.
Okay, you're familiar with this, and this brings us hope to the hotel industry. It can work as well, even with this business model. Let's have a look a little bit at the startup landscape here in Europe. You made your antitrust complaint together with some other strong brands here out from Germany, with Omio, with Flixbus, with Tourlane, with Get Your Guide. I think I got them all. So, yep, this is it. And we see there is a wide range of huge growing brands established here from Germany. Is there a change in the global startup landscape? Is there coming more innovation out of Europe, and why is it happening now?
Yeah, I think it's maybe getting visible now, yeah, because all of these companies have been there for around quite some time. Yeah, so we founded HomeToGo 2014. Get Your Guide is even older, and so on. I think the main reason why Europe is maybe Europe in general is a good space to create a travel company is because Europe as a whole is still like, if you look into normal global travel trends, the most visited areas of the world. Yeah, because everyone maybe doesn't want to go to the German Baltic Sea. Yeah, but everyone, Americans, Asians, want to go to France or to Italy or to Spain, to Tuscany, yeah, and see these kind of things. So this is why, and Booking.com obviously also started in Europe, yeah, is a good place to have some kind of a strong base where you can start like going, because the supply is anyway global and there's a network effect for this supply, maybe except for German Baltic Sea that is very regional and more domestic demand driven, yeah. Mm-hmm.
How do you see the startup landscape in general and the funding landscape? I mean, we see a lot of fundings here in Europe. You collected, I think, roughly $176 million in the last years. Get Your Guide, Omio, they all made three-digit million fundings. And the funny thing is, people said, or the investors said, it's tough times for B2C business models in travel industry. Now we see good fundings here. So is there any changes? Is it going back to B2C?
To a certain extent, yes. And I would say it's always like the current markets anyway have a good situation because there's a lot of money in the markets. Yeah, so that's one point. And I think there's a lot of good businesses being built in Europe. Yeah, and it has been already like strong prior the crisis. And people know that if you do the right things during a crisis, like I know from a lot of startups, and we did it ourselves, investing especially into product and technology things, even then when you cannot test things on your website and people see what you have been building prior, then also this interruption doesn't mean that people stop believing in your business. Yeah, and obviously also if you look at the stock markets, this also helps private markets in terms of money that can flow into companies or into good companies. Yeah, and for good companies and good business and good product, you will always find people that are interested in investing because they see the future of these companies can be bright from what they saw in the past and how people also reacted to the crisis.
Lots of optimism from your side. Thanks for this, Patrick. Final question: what is your next private holiday? Have you booked anything already for the summer?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I still hope that the German government will give some hope for the Easter holidays, or at least then in May. Yeah. Then I would go probably to the German Baltic Sea. Yeah. And then in the summer, I need to see what is allowed, but I think probably most of it will be allowed. So I'm definitely initially planning to go to Italy and probably to Sardinia or Tuscany. Yeah.
So we might meet us again at the Baltic Sea, or even latest here on ITB Berlin next year. It was a pleasure to meet you, Patrick.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Patrick,
Likewise.
Andrae, CEO, HomeToGo.